and a thought-provoking ritual to be practiced throughout our lives toward those who are significantly older than we are. There is wisdom with age, and any society which practices such rituals is wiser and richer for doing so. Children need to be disciplined from an early age to control their temper and to deny themselves of every wrong desire. They have to be taught not to steal, not to lie. One who grows up learning self-control, learning to say no to himself, is far more likely to be a positive member of a harmonious society. Murder, adultery, theft, lying, and envy exist in all nations and among all peoples. And these problems would be even worse if there were not penalties imposed by governments for the violation of several of these commands. Consider how many people would murder, commit adultery, or steal if no penalty were ever imposed for doing so. We are by nature self-centered, and it is only through careful and diligent training that we learn to think of others. And thinking of the well-being of the other person is what true love is all about. The Apostle Paul instructs us in Philippians, the 2nd chapter, and verse 3, "Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind let each esteem others better than himself. Let each of you look out not only for his own interest, but also for the interest of others. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus." But what about romantic love? You may be thinking about that right now. Does the Bible ever address that subject? Yes, it does. And in the remainder of this program, we will address that kind of love. Many passages confirm that sexual relations are only for marriage. Notice 1 Corinthians, the 6th chapter, and verse 18. "Flee sexual immorality. Every sin that a man does is outside the body, but he who commits sexual immorality sins against his own body." Notice also Hebrews 13:4. "Marriage is honorable among all, and the bed undefiled. But fornicators," that is, unmarried individuals who engage in sex, "and adulterers God will judge." The Holy Bible also forbids practices which are becoming only too prevalent in much of the world. It states unequivocally that marriage is only to be between a man and a woman. Notice that in Leviticus, the 18th chapter, and verse 22. "You shall not lie with a male as with a woman. It is an abomination." The Bible relates a tragic story of a young man who never learned what love is, and describes the terrible results. It is a story of Amnon, a son of King David, and Tamar, his half-sister. Amnon didn't understand the meaning of love. Either he had never been taught what it means to love a woman, or he was a very poor student. Love to him was self-centered and worldly. Instead of love, it was lust. Let us read of this sad account in 2 Samuel, the 13th chapter. "Now after this it was so that Absalom, the son of David, had a lovely sister whose name was Tamar. And Amnon, the son of David, loved her. Amnon was so distressed over his sister Tamar that he became sick, for she was a virgin. And it was improper for Amnon to do anything to her. But Amnon had a friend whose name was Jonadab, the son of Shimeah, David's brother. We are then told that Jonadab was a very crafty man, and he hatched up a plan for Amnon to be alone with Tamar. And Amnon was only too eager to follow the advice of his cunning cousin. Notice how he put Jonadab's plan into action. Then Amnon lay down and pretended to be ill. And when the king came to see him, Amnon said to the king, "Please let Tamar and my sister come and make a couple of cakes for me in my sight, that I may eat from her hand." David should have suspected something was not right with such a request. But for whatever reason, he was fooled by Amnon's words and granted him his request. And David sent home to Tamar, saying, "Now go to your brother Amnon's house and prepare food for him." So Tamar went to her brother Amnon's house, and he was lying down. Then she took flour and kneaded it, made cakes in his sight, and baked the cakes. And she took a pan and placed them out before him, but he refused to eat. Then Amnon said, "Have everyone go out from me." And they all went out from him. Then Amnon said to Tamar, "Bring the food into my bedroom, that I may eat from your hand." We are not told whether Tamar had any reservations about this arrangement, but danger signs were all around. Why such an unusual request in the first place? Why was everyone else to be put out of the house? Why was she requested to feed him by hand, alone in his bedroom? Clearly there is a lesson here for all young women. And Tamar took the cakes which she had made and brought them to Amnon her brother in the bedroom. Now when she had brought them to him to eat, he took hold of her and said to her, "Come, lie with me, my sister." But she answered him, "No, my brother, do not force me, for no such thing should be done in Israel. Do not do this disgraceful thing." However, he would not heed her voice, and being stronger than she, he forced her and lay with her. As tragic as this was, it got even worse for Tamar. As so often happens when a man seduces, or as in this case rapes, a woman and gains his desires, he then dumps her. Most often it is because what he is chasing is a thrill of conquest. But there are other reasons for dumping. With Amnon, it appears that he was afflicted with guilt, and rather than take responsibility for what he had done, he transferred that responsibility for what happened onto poor Tamar. Then Amnon hated her exceedingly, so that the hatred with which he hated her was greater than the love with which he had loved her. And Amnon said to her, "Arise, be gone." So she said to him, "No, indeed, this evil of sending me away is worse than the other that you did to me." But he would not listen to her. Then he called his servant who attended him and said, "Here, put this woman out, away from me, and bolt the door behind her." It would seem that if one truly loved someone, he would not do anything to harm the object of his love. Though Amnon professed love for Tamar, and perhaps as with so many young people, he thought he loved her, his actions tell us a different story. He was selfish and cruel. There was no outgoing concern. For him, love was all about the way that he felt and what he wanted. Tamar's feelings and her well-being were not even considered. This, my friends, is not love. In the end, Amnon paid a price for his treachery. 2 years later, Tamar's brother Absalom took revenge, and it cost Amnon his life. Jesus summed up love in what is called the Golden Rule. It is recorded in Matthew, the 7th chapter, and verse 12. "Therefore, whatever you want men to do to you, do also to them. For this is the law and the prophets." Yes, this is God's message for mankind, so simple yet so lacking. If we would only treat others as we want to be treated, we would have a far different world. Murder, adultery, and thievery would disappear. If even one of God's 10 commandments were kept, it would transform the world. Western society has changed dramatically in the last 50 years. Young people once looked forward to a lifelong marital relationship with the same person. They committed themselves formally before friends and family to faithfully love each other until death parted them. Men and women had well-defined roles that complemented one another and created a stable environment for raising their children. But relationships today are built on convenience, preserving one's independence, and focusing on one's own personal needs above those of the other. Commitments are made with escape clauses. Marriage itself is looked down upon by many in such places as Canada. For the first time ever, there are more people cohabiting, that is, living together apart from traditional marriage, than there are married couples.